In the modern digital world, words are all around us all of the time. We're getting bombarded with them, whether it's from adverts, notifications, from the newspaper, the television, from our computers. There's words everywhere. There's that many of them. Sometimes it feels like it's difficult just to get a break and to get other people's words out of our heads. It can seem that because of all these words that are all around us, the words are losing their power. But this isn't true, it's just an illusion. Our ability to transfer thoughts, ideas and emotions between each other with words is one of the most transformative powers that we possess as human beings. This gives us the ability to transfer emotions from ourselves to other people using our words. We can do that by speaking, and we can also write down our words and other people can read them. And this also gives us the ability to be able to do this even when we're not here anymore. When we speak the right words, even just a few of them, we can change somebody's mood. We can shift their perspective. We can make their day a little bit better. In this video, I'm going to tell you about a simple system of collecting and arranging words that I tested out. And I found that it was like a little sort of psychological positivity toolkit that I could reach into whenever I needed a lift. And I can keep this toolkit for the rest of my life and get benefits from it every day. Unlike traditional tools, these ones never wear out. They may get a little bit rusty at times, but at the end of this video, I'll tell you a little trick so that you can freshen them up and make them good again. So what I'm talking about is sayings or quotes or proverbs. And this whole thing started for me in one of my first jobs that I had. The company made these calendars that I think we gave them to clients, and we also had some lying around in the office. And they had a piece of paper for every day of the year, and at the bottom of each piece of paper was a little saying for that day. And I noticed that I really liked some of them. Some of them kind of sparked some emotion in me, like a motivation or joy, you know. And one of them in particular I remember was by Thomas Fuller, and it was, "Despair gives courage to a coward." So I took these pieces of paper, I had about 5 or 6 of them with my favourite sayings on, and I cut the sayings off the bottom and I stuck them with blue tack onto a piece of card. And I remember years later when I started working for myself online, I put this piece of card on my monitor, just sort of stuck it on the bottom with some blue tack. So every time I went to my screen, I would look at these sayings and feel motivated, feel some joy from them. And this was when I realized that I really liked powerful quotes, and I understood how they made me feel, how they could shift my mood. So over the years, while working online, I would regularly look in search engines and find new sayings, and I kept a directory on my computer with little files in there with a selection of motivational quotes and various other categories of quotes that I really liked, and the ones that really caused me to feel an emotion, you know, to really feel the power of those words. And then recently I decided I was going to create a new list with all of the, you know, my real favourite ones, and to see just how powerful that could be. Then recently I'd become much more mindful of how I could use things like sayings to motivate myself and to create a powerful emotion inside myself. And I decided I was going to create a list of all my favourite, all the best ones, so that at any given time when I really needed a boost, or at the start of every day, I could go and look at this list and try and get myself in the right frame of mind to get the difficult things done that I needed to do that day. So I started doing more targeted searches in specific areas where I felt like I needed more motivation. So on topics like being creative, or people who'd had really difficult experiences but come out the other side a lot wiser, or people who succeeded later in life. Just all these topics that I felt related to me, areas where I wanted new sayings. And as I was going through them, I would always look for the ones where, when I read the words, they really affected me, you know, where I come out the other side just wanting to stare at them for a while, and I would feel motivated at that point, or I would feel joy to be alive, or something really profound. If it moved me in that way, then made it into the list, and I collected these sayings. Just to demonstrate what I'm referring to when I talk about the sayings list, here is an example on the screen now where you can see that it's basically just a Word document, and you can see that I've got my sayings written in there. I've got my favourite ones at the top here, and as I scroll down you can see that I've got quite a lot more of them. So if at some point I decide that this one has become one of my favourites and I want to see it more often when I open the document, I just cut it from here and then I paste it in at the top. And by doing so, I can keep my current favourites near the top and I can keep the list nice and fresh. So once I had all these extra sayings, I started using the list. I would look at it at the start of each day to try and get myself motivated to get through the challenges of the day. Or I would find a point in time where I was a bit flat, where I needed a bit of a boost, and I would go and have a look at them. And I would really pay attention to the ones that really created powerful emotions in me, the ones that I would stop and think about for a while, because a lot of these sayings, you can read many different meanings into them. You can try and understand what the person was thinking when they wrote them. But I find with the best ones, you can find multiple positive things that come from them. So when I found these sayings that really moved me, I would stop and think about them for a while. I would try and get inside the head of the writer and try and understand what they were trying to transmit when they wrote these things. I think a lot of sayings have, the best ones probably, you can read them in different ways. Different people might get different things from them. And I find that quite amazing with just a few sentences, that you can get so much from them, but that's the power of words. And I found it interesting to think about the people who wrote them. Quite often it was really famous people like Albert Einstein or Charles Darwin. And then other times it was Bob Smith and someone I'd never heard of before. But it kind of, with the people who were famous, it gave a different angle on the things that they were saying. Sometimes it gave them more meaning. So as I started spending more time reading these sayings and really appreciating them, it struck me that these sayings have the ultimate social proof. I mean, if somebody wrote a saying and put it out there into the world and it really wasn't very good, it's not going to last. People aren't going to pass it on. They're not going to tell their children. They're not going to tell their friends, their family. They're not going to stick it on their computer monitor like I did. They're not going to have it tattooed on their body. They're not going to quote that phrase when they're doing great speeches. But the ones that have survived, and some of these have survived for hundreds and thousands of years, they've passed the test of time. These words are just got an incredible level of social proof behind them. And it affects the way, someone who likes to write content myself, it affects the way you feel about words when you realize that there's a chance that if you write something really profound and helpful and positive, that in hundreds of years, when you're not here anymore, somebody could be talking about your words. They could be quoting you. They could be having it tattooed on their arm. They could be choosing your words as the perfect thing for them to pass on to their children, to give their children the kind of wisdom they want that shapes them into the kind of person they want to be. I mean, there's no better compliment than that if a parent wants to use your words to educate their child, to make them into the kind of person that they want them to be, to guide them for the rest of their life, for them to keep those quotes and sayings as their favourites for the rest of their life, and say, my mum or my dad gave me this saying because it meant so much to them, and now I'm keeping that tradition going by following the words myself. Then it makes the whole process of writing so much more enjoyable because of the potential of your words. If you spend hours poring over your words and really thinking about them, then that time isn't wasted. Because if you're like a craftsman honing your words, a wordsmith, then it just becomes worth more if you think about what legacy you can leave in the world. So conversely, even if you're not a writer yourself, if you're just somebody who is appreciating those sayings and using them to make your life better, if you're using them in the way I described to give you a lift when you need it, then you're kind of giving something to the people who wrote them in the first place. And if you pass them on and share them, then again, you're kind of making them go viral. And in a way, you're giving respect to those people who aren't here anymore, and you're doing what they would have wanted you to do, which is to take those words and to use them for good. So when I think about the power of words in this context, I can sometimes get a bit carried away, but I kind of think that, you know, for every person that is moved by these words, part of their energy is going into that saying, and when it passes on to somebody else, they're sharing in that energy, and the energy starts maybe a long, long time ago from the person who created them and put them together and crafted them in that way. But that energy is being passed along and shared through the generations, and it's a little bit woo-woo, but it's also something beautiful if you want to view it that way. And I like being part of something beautiful, because there's plenty of things in life which aren't so much, that you have to get involved in. So yeah, I'm enjoying making this video about the power of words, because maybe I'm contributing something positive to the world by doing so. So by creating this list, what we're actually doing here is we're trying to inspire ourselves with these words that we found that work for us. We've tested them, and we know that they give us the right response. They create a positive emotion within us, and that's what we're looking for. So we put these words together in a list, and it's like precision inspiration, because if it works for us, if we know that it works for us, we know that a sentence has power which can move us and take us from one state of mind to a slightly better one, then this toolkit is really valuable. You know, it's worth doing. So sometimes I would find that some of the sayings were losing their power a little bit. Maybe I'd read them a few too many times, got a little bit bored with them, and I would kind of relegate them down the list. I would move them to near the bottom, and then I'd do the opposite. That if I looked at one that was halfway down and I thought, this is the one right now, that it really means something, this really gets me going and gets me motivated, then I'd move it to the top. And it was, yeah, literally like a Billboard 100 chart, where the top of the pops would be right at the top. And it worked really well, because when I opened that list, I always look at the top first. So the most powerful ones would be right there where I needed them. And this list kind of came to life, you know, it became very powerful for me. And even the ones that I saw the most became my favorites, and they're stuck in my head. I don't even need them to look at them on a list anymore, because they're part of me now. They live in me, and I've seen the proof of that. I've got certain phrases that are just part of my vocabulary now, and I call on them at different times for different things, and I've got different meanings that I've taken from them, but they work. And as I say, they become part of me, they become part of my identity. So as well as having this main list, what I also did was I created separate lists sort of on the bottom of that, which were all categorized into different sections, because I found it helpful. Like, I could have a list of motivational sayings, I could have a list of sayings about perseverance, I could have a list that was all about determination. Just any particular thing where I found that I was getting more and more sayings that fitted into the same group, I would create a new little section, so that there were certain days where I would need something specific, and I would go to that section and I would look at 5 or 10 different quotes and find that they were just what I needed for that particular period in time. So I found that my toolkit was kind of expanding our different compartments within it, you know, with the main compartment with the main tools in it, but then specific compartments with tools for specific jobs in it. And this toolbox is just getting more and more useful as I just made simple little changes to it. So I did some research and I found that repetition actually rewires the brain. So by repeatedly looking at these sayings that have a beneficial effect, you're basically reprogramming yourself. It's great. And I also found that emotional memory is more powerful than neutral memory. So by deliberately picking sayings where I felt an emotion firing in me when I read it for the first time or multiple times, it makes even more sense that these are the ones that are particularly useful tools to have in your toolkit. What I also found when I looked into this was words shape your self-talk, and your self-talk shapes your identity. So you're basically reprogramming your internal narrator. And you become what you rehearse internally. So it's not just me saying this, it's kind of scientific. So when I realized how much these words that I was reading were having a powerful effect on me, as somebody who creates videos, this affects what I do. It made me understand the power of what I'm trying to do here. So it kind of drives me on. This is fundamental to what I'm doing here. The subject of this video is part of why I'm doing this. So we're living in a world that's increasingly algorithm driven. You know, the technological, digital world we live in, it's got some real benefits. And one of them is being able to search for sayings online, but it has downsides too. And algorithms don't care about things like truth and wisdom and meaning. They're more to do with just manipulating people and getting them to do what you want when you want them to push them in a direction that you want to push them in. So by building a list of sayings, of your own sayings that work for you, you're effectively creating your own algorithm. And that's fantastic. And one of the added benefits of these sayings is that the very best ones have lasted for a very long time, as we discussed earlier. And that means they have intergenerational usefulness. They helped people 300 years ago, and they're still helping people now. So regardless of the times that we live in, and living in an algorithm-driven world, we're powering ourselves with words that transcend all of that. So the nice thing is that in an algorithm-driven world, like we're living in today, we can sort of fight back against that a little bit. You know, we need to protect ourselves somewhat against these things so that we're in control of ourselves, that we're making the decisions and not allowing other people to make our decisions for us. And this is one way of doing that, because we are specifically choosing the things that drive us in the direction we want to go in, and then we're making them a part of our daily lives. So we are shaping our life in that way and taking control of it, and I think that's a really good thing to do. So to summarize what I'm suggesting here is basically we can think about ourselves like a craftsman, really. Over time, we're filling up our psychological toolkit with the right tools, these special tools that we've tried out lots of them, and then we keep the very best ones, and then we put them in our toolkit. And if we use them every day or many times each week, eventually those tools become a part of us. They'll be stuck in our heads, and we won't be able to forget them even if we wanted to. And if we make good choices at the start by tuning in to our emotions to help us make those choices, then this toolkit is going to be very powerful. It's a very simple concept, and I'm not coming up with anything magical or clever here. It's just something that I tried that works, and works better than I thought it would at the start. It's a lot better. So I'm sharing that because I think it's great. So just to summarize, what I'm suggesting that we do here is go and look for quotes, go and search Google, or go to your favorite AI tool and use that to search, tell it what you're looking for. Choose different categories, ideally, and say, right, I want some sayings, really good sayings about how to be motivated, or how to be really determined when the chips are down, or whatever it is that you feel you need help with, or just, I want to be appreciative of life, or I want sayings about the joy of life. Those kind of things, really positive things. Go and find those, and when you look through them, be ready to make a nice little list and just tune into yourself internally and try and notice when they spike a really powerful emotion, a really positive emotion, whether it makes you want to go and do something, whether it makes you want to become a writer, whether you want to share really wonderful things with the world, whichever it is, anything at all that's positive, just take note of that if it drives you to action, because those things are very powerful. And I think, generally speaking, I know from speaking for myself, the things I do on a day-to-day basis, or certainly have done for most of my life, are not the same as that. I'm not tuning into my emotions as much as I should. I'm not finding things that drive me in the right directions and then keeping them somewhere where I can then access them really easily, so that I'm always driven. I've not done those things throughout my life, and it's a shame. I wish I'd done them more, but I'm doing them now, and I'm going to keep doing them because I want to achieve great things. And to achieve great things, you need to be able to have a lot of drive and determination. You need inspiration from somewhere. So we've got these things out there on the internet. We can just kind of zoom past them as we look for entertainment or other things to pass the time. Or we could just spend some time just collecting these things and finding the very best ones and utilising them for what they're best at, and create a list. And try what I said. Update your list, find the ones that work best for you and put them at the top. Move the others down if they're not as powerful anymore, and see how it works for you. Create separate lists in categories if you want, and use those when you need them. When you feel like you need a specific boost in a specific area, go to that list. See if it works, and tell me in the comments. Tell me how you get on. Tell me if you think it's a load of rubbish. Tell me if you think it's not and you think it's great. And if you've got any great ideas of how to make this system even better, then please share it with me, share it with other people, because that's what it's all about. So when you've made this list and you've got your favourite sayings at the top and it's constantly evolving, you're moving them around, you're pushing new ones to the top and relegating some down, then there's one more added benefit of this list. Because when you look at the words that you turn to when you're under pressure, that's going to give you an insight into who you're becoming. So let's talk about some examples of the sayings that I've got near the top of my list. I'll start with one that's been near the top for quite a long time. This is a Chinese proverb, and it is, the journey is the reward. Now, I love that saying. I love it because I do think you can read into it in various different ways. I obviously don't know what the person was thinking when they created it. But for me, I know I return to that saying a lot of times when I'm trying to achieve something that's really difficult and I'm really struggling. Then when I think of that, I realise that it's not just about the end goal. And sometimes you don't achieve your goal. Sometimes you put in so much effort into trying to achieve a goal and you don't even get there at the end. And I know in the past when that happened to me, I was crushed. I thought the whole thing has been a waste of time. And then when I got a little bit older and wiser, I realised that actually you learn lessons along the way, and the best lessons you learn are often from the hardest challenges. So when I came across that saying, it just encapsulated that whole idea, which is that the journey is the reward. So another way of looking at that is that when a journey is really hard, when you're trying to achieve a goal and it's really, really difficult and you feel like giving up, then you just remind yourself that every journey, there are all these rewards along the way. So even if you feel like you might not make that goal, keep going and try and hit it, because you will gain many things along the way, and they're not all visible. You know, they're not all visible immediately. Sometimes they take many years to kind of brew and marinate, and then they show themselves. And one other thing I really like about that saying is that it taught me to remember that along the way, many of the rewards are not so obvious. They're kind of hidden under a leaf somewhere. You walk right past them, but you know, things don't always fall into your lap. So you have to remember that because there are so many rewards along the way, that sometimes you've got to dig a little bit to find them. But they're there. So another one of my favourites is a saying by John Graham. And what he said was, you'll find that education is just about the only thing lying around loose in this world, and it's about the only thing a fellow can have as much of as he's willing to haul away. Now, I love that, not least because I like finding stuff that's lying around, and I like stuff where you can haul away as much as you want. But I thought about it and I thought it's so true, and education is so valuable. That it's just a cracking saying, and it's always going to sit near the top of my list. I find it hard to relegate that one because it's really good. Another one that I think is so profound is, the last stroke of the hammer breaks the stone. This doesn't mean that the first stroke is useless. Success is the result of continuous effort. Now, as far as I know, I don't know who wrote that. It's by Anonymous. But it's cracking. It's just, I love it because it is so true. It's so helpful to just fall back on that saying when you're trying to achieve a goal and it feels like you're getting nowhere. And so often that's the case in different things that I've tried to do. Is the hardest part is the part where you've put a lot of effort in, and it starts to feel like a real gamble because you're just not getting anything back at that point in time because you can't see the progress. But then if you go and read that saying at that point in time, then you remember that you just have to keep chipping away at the stone, and it should eventually break. Another one I particularly like is, try not to become a man of success, but rather become a man of value. And that was written by Albert Einstein, who was probably a man of value, I think it's fair to say. But yeah, you can read into that what you like, I guess, but who doesn't like a man of value? And I guess the obvious lesson is that if you try and become a man of value, if you try and do things that give to other people and give a lot, then you really should probably end up finding success anyway. So it is probably better to try and be that man of value than trying to be a man of success, because I know in the past I tried to be a man of success and I didn't get there. So after that had happened, I was then looking for the lesson. Well, what should I do instead? Of course, I need success to survive and to have a worthwhile life. But I can't keep trying things and then failing because I won't survive. So what's the answer? And if you look at that, if very successful people telling you that perhaps you should try being a man of value first and then the success will follow, then obviously I've heard that said in many different ways, but this one encapsulates it, and it came from someone who was pretty much a man of value. So that stays in my list. And another one that scores highly in my list is, concentrate all your thoughts upon the work in hand. The sun's rays do not burn until brought to a focus. I think what I really like about that one is that you can visualize a magnifying glass being used to bring the sun's ray into a focus and then being so powerful that it sets something on fire. Because if you then take that back and think about it in terms of your own focus of trying to achieve a goal, it just makes sense. You just think, you know that the sun is hot when you feel it on your hand or your body, but the first time you see a magnifying glass concentrating the rays in that way, and then you see just how hot it is when it's concentrated, it's quite amazing. So in the same way, surely many of the people that did amazing things, they did them because they had focus that was like the sun's rays. They just really focused on things and they set things on fire. So yeah, I like that one. And that was Alexander Graham Bell. Another one I like is by Billy Oppenheimer. And that's, above all else, focus on acquiring knowledge and skills. Knowledge and skills are like gold, a currency you will transform into something more valuable than you can imagine. Yeah, hard to explain really why I like that, except that it's just, when you think of the concept of just acquiring knowledge and skills, it just seems like a really smart thing to do. And sometimes I need to be reminded to do the smart thing rather than the stupid thing. So I like that saying for that reason. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you very much for watching. I hope it's been of some use to you. If you do make your own sayings list, please let me know in the comments. Let me know if you've got any great ideas about how to make this system better. If you did find it useful, please hit the like button. If you want to see more like this, please hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.